So for this assignment, I chose to provide some information on the circulatory system. I think I took a little different approach to this than the rest of the class, but I think sometimes students can get tired of listening to the same teacher talk, so it may be beneficial to use YouTube videos in some cases to help reiterate the information. For instance, the crash course videos make the information really fun and appealing for students, so I really like the idea of showing those. So this video is just an example of a lecture video compilation that I would show to students as a review of the material.
The normal heart has two sides, a right side and a left side, and four chambers: the top receiving chambers, or atrium, and the lower chambers, which are thick-walled pumping chambers, called ventricles. Red blood cell will come from either the superior vena cava or the inferior vena cava and enter into the right atrium. The blood then flows across the tricuspid valve to the right ventricle. The right ventricle then squeezes and ejects that blood cell into a vessel called the pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery splits into two vessels, each going to the lungs. As that red blood cell makes its way through the lung, it returns through the pulmonary veins to the left atrium. That blood is now oxygenated. It's picked up oxygen, then goes across the mitral valve into the left ventricle, which does most of the work in terms of delivery of blood flow to the body. That blood cell is now ejected into the aorta to some organ or muscle or skin in the human body.
No doubt about it, your heart is a champion. It electrifies itself, it maintains your blood pressure, it keeps your blood moving, and it's got like a nice shape you can put some chocolates inside of and give to people you like. But the circulatory system is much, much more than just that pump, because the heart also needs a network to actually send all that blood through, right? Cue the blood vessels. Although it's easy to think of them as a glorified plumbing system for your body, that's not a very good analogy. These aren't just passive tubes made merely to carry liquid around like the pipes behind your walls at your home. Blood vessels are actually active, dynamic organs capable of contracting and expanding as they deliver oxygen and nutrients to cells throughout the body, carry away waste products, and do their part in maintaining that all-important blood pressure. You already know about the three major types of blood vessels: the arteries that carry blood away from the heart, the veins that bring it back, and the little capillaries that act as the transfer station between the two. But you've also got arterioles, which are like mini arteries that branch out into those capillaries, and venules, the smallest vein components that suck blood back out of the capillaries and merge into the larger veins that head home to the heart. And it's quite an incredible journey, really. If all your blood vessels could be strung together in a single line, they'd stretch out for 100,000 kilometers. That's like, if you, and then carry the two. It's like 2.5 times around the Earth. And together, this extensive network forms a closed system that begins and ends at the heart. That means that all 5 or so liters of blood in your body are contained within it at all times, unless you're bleeding, which I hope you're not. If you prick a finger and watch a drop of blood pop up, you know that you've nicked a blood vessel, and that blood is leaking out of its closed system. Likewise, if you slam your shin against the corner of a coffee table on your way to the bathroom, and an hour later you see a big nasty bruise forming, then you know you've damaged your blood vessels again, because bruising is internal bleeding, usually into loose connective tissue. And if you're embarrassed about that shriek that you let out when you bumped your leg and you start to blush, well, that's your blood vessels too, expanding, just to say hello. Don't take this the wrong way, but you're pretty replaceable. When it comes to your body, science has figured out how to hack, synthesize, or replace a surprising amount of its parts and processes. We have implants to keep heartbeats steady and steel rods to mimic bones. We've got drugs that can replace hormones and antibiotics to cover for your immune system. And pretty soon you'll be able to just 3D print a new ear if you need one. Really. But one thing we absolutely cannot manufacture, despite what True Blood would have you believe, is blood. And yet blood is a thing that we all need. And sometimes, because of injury or illness, we need extra blood. In fact, every 2 seconds, someone in the U.S. needs a blood transfusion. This could be a victim of a car accident, someone undergoing surgery, or a cancer patient who needs new blood to maintain their health during chemotherapy. And because we can't grow it on trees or make it in a lab or even store it for all that long, the blood that people need, nearly 16 million pints a year in the U.S., has to come from people who have donated it. So, let's talk blood, shall we? The meal of choice for vampires and female mosquitoes, blood is red, sticky, salty, and kind of metallic tasting. It is indeed thicker than water and super viscous, which is why Hitchcock used chocolate syrup as a stand-in a certain classic shower scene. For most purposes, blood comes in 8 different types, and it accounts for about 8% of your body weight. You might remember from our episodes on tissues that blood is a type of connective tissue, which means it's made of living cells suspended in a non-living matrix, which in this case is the fluid ground substance called plasma. And of course, one of blood's main missions is to transport and distribute oxygen and nutrients and waste products and hormones around the body, but it also helps maintain and regulate body temperature, pH levels, and the volume of fluids in your body. Plus, it protects you from infection and from the loss of blood itself. Perhaps second only to your brain, your blood is the one component of your body that we haven't figured out how to reproduce, synthesize, or imitate. It's a part of you that is literally irreplaceable.